Sunrise Church. Good morning. My name is Pastor Nathan Deisem, and I am always honored and humbled and excited to unpack God's Word for you. But today is especially exciting because I get to do it with
Rachel. Hi.
And you're going to understand why we decided to team up today in just a minute. But I want to give a little bit of background about what it is we're doing today. We are in the middle of a sermon series called Against the Flow. And if you look at the sermon series graphic, it explains a little bit about what it is that we mean by against the flow. You see all these arrows going in one direction. And what that represents is the force and the inertia of society away from God's plan. And I'm not some naysayer that's like, oh, things are a lot worse than they used to be. The whole world, since sin has entered, has always been against God, against His people, against His plan. However, for those of us who follow God, know Him, have been made alive through His Son Jesus, through faith in His Son Jesus, we are empowered through the indwelling Holy Spirit to go against the flow. What that means is to resist the pressure from society, the pressure from the outside world to just, compromise on what it is that God has revealed to us is the correct way, is the righteous way, is His way. The last couple of weeks, we've heard some pretty exciting stories from the Bible about some people who went against the flow. Just last week, Pastor Mark preached about Elijah, who was the last remaining prophet of the Most High God, by himself. The whole rest of the nation and the kingdom and the people were worshiping a false god, Baal, who had 400 prophets. False god, 400 prophets. And Elijah, who was in a dangerous situation, because it was unpopular to be a prophet of the Most High God, said, I know what we're going to do. We're going to have a showdown, and we're going to decide once and for all who is the Most High God. And it was proved through God's power as He burned up the offering that Elijah made that our God is the Most High God, because Elijah went against the flow. Week before that, Pastor Mark unpacked a lot from the book of Daniel. How Daniel, his 3 Hebrew friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they resolved in advance, before anything had even begun. When Judah was conquered by Babylon, they said, no matter what happens, no matter where they're taking us, we will follow the Lord. And on several occasions, they had to stand up to that resolve. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were told to bow down to the idol. They did not, and the Lord delivered them because they went against the flow by faithfulness. Daniel was told, you can't pray to your God anymore. He said, oh yes I can. He prayed, he was thrown in the lion's den. It was kind of a trick, very cloak and dagger. That message is online, or you could read the story yourself. It was amazing. But he went against the flow. And throughout all these stories, these heroes of our faith, especially, we've been in the Old Testament for a couple of weeks, went against the flow, and God's name was glorified, and we remember them. But today, we're studying a different kind of hero.
We're going to talk about Esther, and I love Esther. I grew up hearing this story multiple times. I was definitely Esther more than once on Halloween. Just going to put that right out there. I loved it. I loved to dress up all pretty. And, I grew up and I kind of started looking at Esther a little bit different. I recently took a 10-week Beth Moore Bible study on Esther. And that's kind of how we got thinking about doing this. I'm going in this in-depth study. If you ever get the opportunity to take a Beth Moore study, it was awesome. I learned things that I'd never thought about before, learned about the circumstances. It was really a blessing. And what it did for me is kind of take the story of Esther and just blew the fairy dust right off it. I'm not a kid anymore. I know that happily ever after doesn't always happen exactly as you thought it was going to happen. And so I really got to see this young Jewish girl, orphaned, come into a situation where she got to go against the flow. She got to say, no matter what, I'm afraid I could meet terrible tragedy. I'm going to go against the flow, and I'm going to be a part of God's story. Now this is a 10-chapter book. It took me 10 weeks to study it. We're not going to read all of that today, because that would be crazy. But we are going to tell you the story in what we hope is a very fun way. So we really want you to know the story, because it's so impactful, it's so interesting, and it is so applicable to us. So we're going to go ahead and start out that story.
The story begins in Persia. The capital city of Persia is Susa. And we are there with the king, and he is throwing a rip-roaring party. The king's name is Xerxes. Some of your translations, if you're reading in Esther, say that his name was Ahasuerus, which is what the Hebrew people called him. But throughout human history, what we know this man as is Xerxes. Maybe you saw the movie 300. I'm not saying you should. And if you saw it, I'm not saying you shouldn't have. But if you saw that movie, that, which was very theatrical and very colorful and really gory, but that is a real person who really existed. And what he is most well known for was trying to conquer more of the world than he already controlled. He inherited the nation of Persia, which was 127 provinces, from India all the way across parts of Asia Minor, portions of Europe, the Middle East, and he just thought to himself, you know what? I haven't really made that much of a name for myself. I think we're going to raise some money, and we're going to go on a military conquest. So that's where we begin. He's at a party. He's got some people with deep pockets that he's trying to entertain. It's day 7 of this party. The wine is flowing. And he says, this is the thinking of a guy who's 7 days into his bender. He says, I'm going to get my wife, Queen Vashti, to come up in here dressed either to the nines, or some scholars seem to think that the text implies, with a double entendre, dressed not at all. Come up in here, entertain my guests, and then they'll be willing to finance this campaign. Hey Vashti, why don't you come in here? Rachel, what did Vashti say?
No.
I'm King Xerxes, man. He fancies himself a god among these people, not accustomed to being told no. So this irks him a little bit that Vashti would defy him. He says, you know what? You're done. You're not queen anymore. Get out of here. What history tells us next, not from the Bible, is that the campaign throughout Europe, which ends at Greece, happens. The Bible doesn't even mention it. What he is most well known for in man's eyes, in history's eyes, God's like, that ain't my story. This, the book of Esther, is God's story. And it is amazing, it is exciting, it's better than a Grisham novel. I highly recommend, we're going to be telling the story quickly, that you find a Bible translation that you're comfortable reading and read it. It is incredible. One thing you will notice, though, is there are details that are left out. And a lot of people debate, why did Esther do this? Or why did this happen? Or why didn't they say this? The details that are included are the details the Holy Spirit wanted us to have so that we would focus on His story. One other unusual detail is that the name of God in no form is mentioned in this book. Not Adonai, which means Lord, not Elohim, not His most private name, I am. God is not mentioned. And a lot of people debate about why that happens. I think I know, though. Because when we're living our workaday lives, sometimes it's difficult to see where God is. But as we unpack this story, we will see clear as day. He is the hero, and Esther was faithful and went against the flow for His glory. So Xerxes comes back from a very expensive, failed military campaign. Esther, within the Bible, picks up with Xerxes. Kind of sad, and, we got our butts kicked in Greece, and, how was he feeling, babe?
He was bummed. He was bummed. His big plan to kind of make a name for himself was crushed. He comes home, he doesn't have a queen. Those 400, however many concubines he has, just isn't cutting it, He needs a queen to make him feel better, let him lay his head on her lap, and just, oh, what a poor boy, what a poor baby. So his friends are all kind of around him, and he's kind of thinking about Vashti, and his friends start thinking and looking at him, and this happens in sitcoms. You know what you need, bro? You need to find another lady. Remember what you said when you got rid of Vashti, that you were going to find a better queen, that was going to obey everything you said? Well, now is the time. You're down. Let's do it. And Xerxes, what did he think about that idea?
You could just see Xerxes' face. He's feeling like this, and his bros. These are his political advisors, by the way. Good idea, guys. Let's throw the Bachelor Persia. That's what we're gonna do, right? And he goes. You could just imagine. Okay, yeah, I like that idea. You guys just get me.
So Xerxes sends his eunuchs out into the world, out into the citadel, and he gathers up all the maidens. So young women who are not married, don't have kids, and by the way, are good looking. Okay? He wants some good looking women. And he brings them all to the palace, okay? And he assigns them a year of what they call beauty treatments. So what that means is You get pampered, mani-pedi, rubbed down, massaged with oil, and they feed you delicious food. I think I want to sign up. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to be in The Bachelor Persia. Too bad I'm already but so they're assigned to these rituals for a year. And so Esther is swept up in this group of maidens. And Mordecai, the man who adopted her, I mentioned she was orphaned. She was. Her older cousin Mordecai actually adopted her and now is basically her guardian. We're going to call him her father. He took care of her. He raised her. So he actually works at the king's gate, and he knows that Esther has gotten taken. And so he's kind of trying to get a message to her, and he says something kind of unusual. He goes, hey, listen, just don't mention that you're a Jew. Just, keep that on the DL. And this is one of the details we don't know a lot about at this point. We're just kind of like, that's weird. Was there prejudice? Was it because of her family? We have no idea. But what does Esther do? She says, I trust you, Mordecai. You're my dad. You've raised me. I'm going to do what you say. So she goes on, and she gets all these pampering treatments. And the Bible says the eunuchs, who, by the way, a eunuch is a person a man who couldn't physically do anything to these women. Let's just put it that way, okay? So that's why they were in charge of the maiden's harem. So she found favor in the eyes of the eunuch. She got the choicest food. She got the best stuff. And each woman would get their turn to go into a night with the king. So Esther comes up to her night, and this is how it works, okay? They would be summoned from the maiden's harem, okay? They would go to the king, and then they would go to the not a maiden anymore harem, okay? And the king may never ever see them again. The only way they would see the king again is if he called them back by name, okay? So either Esther's going to go in here, and she's going to be the queen, or she's going to come out and she's going to go live with all of these rejects for the rest of her life. The end, okay? So Esther goes in to the king, and lo and behold, he falls madly in love with her. He says, I'm going to make you the queen. This little Jewish girl is like, what? That is not what the Bible says. That's what I imagine Esther did, because that's what I would do. What? So she is now made queen of Persia. That is my Cinderella story when I was a little kid. That's what I got excited about. I want to dress up like the queen, So exciting. But I want to tell you something. This is not the highlight of her story. This is not the high point for Esther. Because God has a plan, and God's story is being told. And she has a greater calling in this that we are going to get to see. And we're going to go back to Mordecai and see that.
That happened earlier than I thought.
I packed it.
So let's jump to Mordecai. Rachel had mentioned he works at a place called the King's Gate. It literally is a gate that separates the inner court, like the Senate chambers where high issues of state happen. But he actually works for the government, just sort of on the fringe, like the DMV or FDA or something. He is a lower bureaucrat, but he works for the kingdom. Isn't that so interesting? In the book of Daniel, we see, even when Babylon conquered Judah, and then Persia conquered Babylon, Jewish people throughout what we call the diaspora, they're not living in the promised land anymore. They've been scattered throughout the nations, were commanded. When this happens, because it's disciplinary, because they walked away from God, they got swept up in the flow of false gods, that he brought this about. He said, while you're there, honor and love the country where you are. Obey my commands, but be a good citizen wherever you land, and thereby glorify my name. So Mordecai works for the government. He hears a plot from other government employees that they want to assassinate the king. He's not like a freedom fighter sort of, guerrilla rebel. He doesn't join up with that. He says, that's not right. God establishes the rulers of this world. He sends word to Xerxes. Bro, some guys are trying to kill you. You need to look out. They investigate his claim, and he was right. They find the conspirators, and they hang them. But not like on a hangman's noose, like when you're playing the game Hangman. The way the Persians did it, they get a tall pole with a point at the top, and they shish kebab you, and they show this is what happens when you come against the king. It's all written down in this running history of the Persian Empire called the Chronicles of the Medo-Persians. It's just like the minutes, it would be very boring reading. You know, yesterday we put in a crosswalk on Main Street, you know, Susa. Today, a guy named Mordecai stopped an assassination attempt against the king. And that was it. And then an odd thing happens in the story. Even though Mordecai saved King Xerxes' life, this guy named Haman, social climber, cutthroat politician, he rockets to the top. He's got the king's ear. He's the guy that the king listens to. And he comes in through the king's gate into the inner sanctum every day. And there's a law, since he works with Xerxes, this god king, that some of Xerxes' divinity kind of splashes on him. And it's a rule that all the other government orderlies, they need to bow down and pay homage to Haman. Literally, they're supposed to worship him as he walks in. But who doesn't bow? Mordecai. And the other people in the government are like, what's your problem, man? This is a rule. When Haman comes in, we're supposed to bow. He says, I'm a Jew. And I worship one being, and it's not Haman. So I will not. Okay? We remember back to 2 weeks ago when Pastor Mark spoke from Daniel. Very similar to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I can't bow to false gods, guys. Word gets to Haman that this one guy is causing problems because he doesn't bow, and it just eats him up. But it eats him up more than you might otherwise expect, because Haman is from an ethnic group called the Amalekites. Remember, Persia has conquered 127 provinces, including Israel, Judah, but also conquered the Amalekites. There is bad blood that goes way back to the Exodus when the Jews were delivered from Egypt, where the Amalekites would raid them and attack them. It is enmity between these people groups that knows no reason other than the enemy has set this flow in motion. The Amalekites hate the Jewish people, and Haman is a true son of the Amalekites. He says, you know what I'm going to do today? I'm going to go into the king, and I'm going to work it out so that not only do I get to kill Mordecai, I am going to do it, so I'm going to do away with Israel forever. So he comes in, and he tells one truth, a half-truth, and a lie to the king. He says, my lord, there's a people group in your kingdom that are in every province. That was true. They follow different laws than us. That's a half-truth. They follow the Mosaic law, but they're good citizens, some of them in the very government. This is the lie. They are a serious threat to your sovereignty and potential rebellion. Just a falsehood. He says, what I'd be willing to do is make a generous contribution to our national treasury if I could deal with this for you. And Xerxes, oh, what a bum. He hears generous contribution to the treasury and potential threat. He says, do what you need to do, bro. Here's my ring. It has my signet. Anything you write and seal with this, it's the law, like it comes from the king. And it can't be undone. You remember from 2 weeks ago when Darius, who was a king of Persia, said that no one was allowed to pray to other gods, and it tricked Daniel? He couldn't even undo his own words, and he wanted to. Think about how loosey-goosey Xerxes is being with the king's word. He says, make it happen, Haman. Haman writes a law that 1 year from now, so that this law can reach the end of the nations, it is open season on Israel. Israel has many enemies because the enemy, the devil, is against God's people. And what they are told is, hey, on this date, you can attack every Jew in every province. We're going to wipe them out. Haman is thinking, yes, I did it. Woo! Mordecai, who works at the king's gate, hears about this. He tears his clothes. He puts ash on his face. He wears these itchy, uncomfortable clothes called sackcloth. And he is openly wailing in the public square, crying out to God, fasting in prayer, you need to deliver us. And he's making quite a scene.
So let me give you a little backstory on where Esther's at right now before we jump right into that. She's been married to the king. She's been the queen for 5 years, okay? And she's getting those beauty treatments all the time. It's awesome. But it has been 30 days since the king has summoned her, okay? Some of the women in this room know maybe what that means, all right? It's been 30 days since she's been looked at in a certain way, okay? And she's starting to be afraid. She's starting to think, I'm losing it. I'm losing his eye. And all of a sudden, her servants come to her and say, listen, you know that guy that you talk to a lot? He's in the square making a big scene. And you may want to handle that situation. She's thinking, I don't want to make any waves. I don't want to make the king dislike me any more than he might already. So go take these clothes, go out to Mordecai, and tell him to put clothes on and maybe keep it down. Okay? That'd be great. Thanks.
Mordecai gets the message that Esther sends with one of her servants. He says, "Are you nuts? Does she know what's going on? Take this law, take it back to Esther. I think she might be able to do something about this." And he does not get dressed and does not stop wailing.
Esther reads the law. And she knows that slaughter of her people is coming. She knows her situation. She knows her fears. She starts to think, this might not touch me. Nobody knows I'm a Jew. Nobody knows that about me. I could lay low. The opposite thing I can do is take myself before Xerxes unsummoned. Now, why was that scary? Like, we go talk to our husbands all the time. It's not a big deal. For someone to go before a king of Persia without being summoned was considered treasonous. It was punishable by death, okay? So Esther's here thinking, I think I may have lost the eye of the king. I think he might not like me. He got rid of Vashti already, okay? For just saying no, she was going to come before everybody naked, okay? Which was unreasonable. But she is not okay with taking her life in her own hands and going before the king. And so you know what she says? She says to her servant, hey, go back and tell him, remind him what could happen to me if I go before the king unsummoned.
And Mordecai gets her message. And probably more importantly, he gets it. He understands the danger that she faces. Now, we've been telling you this story in our own words. When you read it, highlight, it's in your bulletins, these verses, which we're about to read. This is the hinge. This is the key to the entire book. It's the reason we can't break this down into pieces and preach it week after week. The whole story turns on what Mordecai is about to say. Actually, it turns on one sentence. So this is the setup. So this is what Mordecai sends back. When Esther's words were reported to Mordecai, he sent back this answer. Esther, do not think that because you're in the king's house, that you alone of all the Jews will escape. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place. But you and your father's family will perish. We'll pause for a minute. What he is explaining there is that, Esther, I know it's scary, but you cannot be wrapped up in the fear. You can't be crippled by fear thinking that you can ride this out. Also, you need to understand, God has made promises to our people that will not be thwarted, okay? So, the whole nation, God will deliver them because this is God's story. However, you're going to die, I'm going to die, all of our family and friends in Susa, at the very least, are going to die. Here's the key. The second part of chapter 4, verse 10. This is the sentence where everything hangs on. This is the against the flow moment. And Mordecai says this. And who knows, but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Mordecai says, I don't know, sweetie. I love you like a daughter. I'm scared for you as well. I don't know what's going to happen. But maybe everything that has happened to you, you're an orphan. I raised you. The king needed a wife. He chose you. God has blessed this scenario. Maybe for this moment.
Where does that leave Esther? Who knows? Sounds great. Yes. Who knows what's going to happen to you? That's exactly what you want to hear. She's stuck between possible death and possible death. And she's still got that little nagging voice in her kind of pulling her with the flow, y'all. She's still thinking, I might be able to get away with this. You don't know. Nobody might come and kill me. It might be okay. But then all of my people will be slaughtered. And she makes the decision to go before Xerxes. She tells her servant, go tell Mordecai, tell all the Jews to fast and pray for me. I'm going to fast and pray, and in 3 days I'm going to go before Xerxes. Now, this is important, you guys. She's asking everybody in her community to look at God for God's story, okay? She needs to think about all of these people and me. We're going with God's story. She's not alone. I am not alone. all right? She's not alone. So she fasts for 3 days. She gets dressed up. She doesn't want Xerxes to know she's hungry, you know? She doesn't want him to know she's stressed, and she doesn't know what's going to happen. She's afraid. And she walks into the inner courts and allows him to see her. And he's going to do one of two things. He's going to extend his scepter and save her life and talk to her. Or he's going to do whatever else and send her to be executed. There's no in between here, people. So he sees her, and her heart's pounding out of her chest. I can imagine. And he extends the scepter to her. And she gets a response that she probably wasn't expecting. What do you think, Dave?
One comment I want to make about the flow, these things that push us away from God's plan. When fear is one of those things, which is very common, oftentimes, and you do a little bit of a self-inventory about the things that you've been afraid of. Most of them are unrealities. They never come to pass. We're afraid. It wasn't an unreasonable fear. It wasn't nonsense. It might have happened, but it wasn't even on Xerxes' radar. She comes in, he raises the scepter. This isn't from the Bible, so everybody know that. If I was shooting a movie of this, though, this is what I would have during Xerxes at that moment. He's in the inner court, you know, stern face, something's going on. He notices, he sees her, and then he's like, and waves his scepter like that. Hey, baby! I don't think I've seen my wife in 30 days, y'all. Man, it's hard being king. Come over here, come over here, come over here. Hey, you were looking so good. You know what? I'm sorry I ain't seen you in a little while. You could ask me for anything right now. You're looking so pretty today. I'd give you half the kingdom if you asked for it. What do you need, baby?
I don't know if Esther thought she was going to get this far. Because the next thing she says is, would you come to dinner with Haman tonight? And Xerxes is like, yeah, okay. So they go to dinner with Haman. So it's Haman, Xerxes, and Esther, all right? The villain, the king who could save them all, and the queen who's going to try to get the king to save them all, all right? So they have dinner, and then they're at the wine course, which is the last course of the meal in Persia. They just, you know, whatever, that was their thing. And so they're drinking, and Xerxes goes to Esther, and he goes, I think you have something else to ask me. It couldn't have been just dinner. You know, why'd you ask us to do this? Tell me what your real request is. And Esther, again, I don't know what was going through her head. I don't know if it was strategy or fear. She goes, come back again tomorrow. Let's have dinner again. What I need to tell you, though, is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter why. It doesn't matter what Esther was thinking, why she had a whole second dinner party. God had a purpose. This was God's story, and I am so excited for you to get a glimpse of why he had 2 dinner parties.
This is where God's part of the story gets really funny. And also why Bible study is so exciting. If you were raised in the church and you were forced to read your Bible, and you have sort of like a sour taste, it's a chore, please give it another shot in a more authentic way. If you're new to the faith, just start reading. It is, when you recognize these are real things, we're going to get right to it. Haman walks out of the dinner party, the villain, and he is just on top of the world. Man, I got the king's ear. The queen seems to like me. I'm getting invited to dinner. He walks through the king's gate, heading home. Mordecai is there, doesn't bow, faithfully, again. And he says, man, everything's coming up Haman, except for this knucklehead Mordecai. He goes home, complains to his wife, complains to his friends. Everything's great at work, except for this one guy. You got that guy at work that you don't like so much? Haman had that guy in a big way. His wife says, baby, I hate to see you like this. You know what we should do? You should go into work early tomorrow and ask King Xerxes if we could kill Mordecai early. And you know what'll make you feel better while we're waiting for it? We're going to build a gallows, a big pike. We're going to put it in our yard, 75 feet high. Won't that make you feel better? Haman's like, baby, you just get me. So that's what he does. The next day, Haman's going into work early. That night, flashback, like in a movie, Xerxes can't get to bed, which is weird because he just had an awesome night with his who he thinks is his good buddy and his wife. Food was going, wine was flowing, enjoyable evening. I can usually get to bed. This is God's story, though. And sleep eludes him. He says, could you bring in the minutes, you know, the Chronicles of the Medo-Persians, and just read it to me? Every time I even look at that book, I'm just like, So his servants bring it in. And they say, well, there was a horse cart accident on Friday of last month, so that was something. Ooh, and several months ago, a man named Mordecai uncovered a plot for your assassination, and we thwarted it. So that's nice. He goes, what? I remember that. Hang on. Xerxes is kind of self-absorbed. He says, man, yeah, there was a guy who saved me. Did we do anything for that guy? And the servant, I don't think so. Is there anybody here right now? I have an idea. Is there anybody in the court? I know it's early, we should just get to work. They check into the open court, and who's coming in? Haman. Coming to work early to ask the king if we could kill Mordecai a year early, because the edict is going out, remember. He comes in, and Xerxes is like, Haman, I'm glad to see you, man. Come in here. I got a question for you. If I were planning to honor someone in a big way, how should I do that? And Haman is thinking, it's happening. He's going to honor me. He said, Lord, I'd get your horse and one of your cloaks and one of your crowns, and I'd put it on him. And I'd parade him around town, and I'd have somebody like a town crier say, this is the man who the king wants to honor. And Xerxes is like, that's what you do? Yeah, that's what I do. Good. Go find Mordecai. Do that for him. So Haman, who hates Mordecai, has to be the MC at the Mordecai Day parade. And they put him on the king's horse, and they wrap him in the king's robe, and they give him the king's crown, and Mordecai has to say, this is the man who the king wants to honor. Mordecai Day parade ends. Mordecai goes back to work. He returns to the king's gate. Because he honors the Lord, and he honors the nation in which he lives. Haman goes home. He tells his wife, baby, I messed up in a big way. The king likes Mordecai. You wouldn't believe what I had to do today. What am I going to do? She says, you're toast, honey. In Hebrew, she says that. She says, you need to... Their conversation is cut off. It's anticlimactic because his servants, his aides, they show up and they're like, Haman, we got the dinner party with the king and the queen. We got to go now. He's like, oh, okay. And he goes to dinner party number 2.
Good reason for 2 dinner parties, right? It is God's story, people. You are not in a strange place to the Lord, okay? So 2 dinner parties, 2nd dinner party, Esther's like, I'm going to do it tonight. So they get all the way through the course. How awkward was that? The whole dinner, they didn't talk about this. So the wine course, the end course comes, and Xerxes says again, you need to tell me what you really want. I'm ready to give you up to half of my kingdom. Tell me your request. And Esther gets up the nerve. She's probably been rehearsing it. She says, my king, if you were just going to enslave me and all of my people, I wouldn't have said anything because it would have benefited your kingdom. But you have signed a law that is going to murder me and all of my kinsmen, all of my people. And Xerxes is like,
whoa, baby, talk about ruining the buzz of the night, right? What are you talking about? Who has done this?
And she gets to say the thing she's been wanting to say for a long time. Haman.
Who's sitting right there? Xerxes, it's a little too much for him. He starts to rewind. He's like, I gotta rethink my life choices. He starts to remember giving Haman his ring. He leaves. I gotta take a minute. He walks out of the room. Haman grabs Esther, and he's like, you gotta help me, okay? You don't know what's gonna happen. Maybe you do know what that... While he is sort of manhandling Esther, begging essentially for his life, Xerxes comes back in. He says, what is going on? You're gonna start early, bro? And they take Haman, and they execute him. And guess where they put him? At the top of the gallows that he made for Mordecai. Oh my goodness! So then we're gonna accelerate to the conclusion, which is amazing by itself. Please go and read it. Esther explains to the king, baby, thank you for saving me and bringing justice to Haman. You know that a law that you've signed, or at least that your ring has sealed, can't be undone. This edict is still going to happen in a little less than a year now. What are we going to do? He says, baby, he's a little loose with the ring. He says, take my ring. Do what needs to be done to fix this. I can't overthrow that law. So Mordecai, who was promoted, by the way, they write a law that says, open season on Israel, that day is coming. That can't be avoided. But they write a law that says Israel can arm up and defend themselves. And when the day comes, first of all, there were fewer people that come a-calling than there might have been, because everyone's like, hey, I don't know about this. The Israelites win and defend themselves, and get this, the Bible says, many people in the nations convert to Judaism. It is in the line of faith that we exist in today. They follow the Most High God. So Esther is saved. Mordecai is saved. Her people are saved. God's name is glorified because one girl, given one opportunity, decided to go against the flow and be faithful to the Lord.
So how do we do this? You read Esther and it's one thing, and then you think, well, I'm not a queen. And nobody's trying to murder me and my family quite yet. So how do I go against the flow? I'm afraid to talk to my neighbors about Jesus. I'm afraid to talk to my neighbors, period. I don't know where you're at. But I want to bring up this verse, and we're going to look at this verse in Ephesians 5. Ephesians 5, 15 to 17. Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise but as wise, making the most of every opportunity because the days are evil. Therefore do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. How you go against the flow, how you make God's story your story, is to make the most of every opportunity. It doesn't matter how good you are at talking to people. It doesn't matter how comfortable you are. It doesn't matter how scared you are. Don't you think Esther was scared? Nobody's going to murder me if I go talk to my neighbor about Jesus. Hopefully. And you know what? They might think you're weird. You might be thinking maybe they'll never talk to me again. Maybe they're going to run away from me whenever I go out to mow my lawn. And that might be true. That might be true. But you might give them the hope of eternity in heaven. You might give them the power to save their marriage through Jesus Christ. You might give them the power to lead their family in a better way. They might change the whole legacy of their entire family. They may reach out and get more people to follow Jesus. Jesus is the hope of our life. He's the reason my life is beautiful. Maybe you're working under the table right now and you're just thinking, I can't make it. If I decide to be honest, if I decide to do an honest day's work, if I decide to go against the flow, I'm not gonna get there. You're always gonna do that until you look at God's story. You're always gonna be stuck there until you say, God, you're going to do this. I'm going to look to you. I'm going to choose to make the most of every opportunity. I'm going to choose your story. I'm going to choose to go against the flow. Let's go ahead and bring up our big idea. No matter what your circumstances, this is the fill in blank, may be, God has arranged your adventure, and it is an adventure, for His glory, through your faithfulness, for such a time as this. The next time you feel the flow trying to sweep you away, the next time you want to tell your husband that he's an idiot, for such a time as this. The next time you want to gossip about your boss behind her back because everybody else is doing it, for such a time as this, make the most of every opportunity. The next time you see somebody and you meet somebody and you think, I don't think I can tell them about Jesus. Do it. Make the most of every opportunity. God can take the most awkward, the most little, the most insignificant to us person, little orphan Jewish Esther, who meant nothing to anyone else. Put you into His story, and you will have the greatest adventure, but you gotta have faith. That's the only thing you've got to do. You've got to say yes. And God is going to help you go against the flow. He's got a story for you, and it's better than anything you could ever imagine.
There's a couple different places that you might be, positions that is, with regards to God. You might be going against the flow. That is fantastic. We want to encourage you. I hope that today has encouraged you. Through life groups, through one-on-one discipleship, which we arrange. If you indicate on your Connect card that you want to go against the flow and you need to be with somebody, because it's hard to go against the flow by yourself, Pastor Steve will help connect you with someone to take this adventure together as spiritual sisters or spiritual brothers to spur one another on. You might be believing in Jesus, but you're swept up in the flow. And today you can dig your heels in with the Holy Spirit's power, not in the flesh, not, I'm going to change this by my bootstraps. I've tried that several times, and that doesn't necessarily work. But we could say, God, it's your story. I'm going to be faithful and go against the flow. You might have never thought, I don't think I look to God for any help. I'm pretty certain that I've never even, never considered that the flow and the things that happen to me in my life in these circumstances had anything to do with anything larger. I'm telling you, they do. God has an awesome plan for your life. And the first step to getting into that adventure is to believe in Him, who He says He is, and more specifically, His Son, Jesus. Esther was faithful, had faith in the Lord, saved her people and herself. Jesus was faithful to come as a man to this earth, live a perfect life, which none of us were able to do, and then died on the cross for our sins, which would be amazing enough. 3 days later, rises again, showing that He's defeated sin, defeated death, defeated evil, so we don't need to fear those things anymore.